Welcome, everybody, to UFO Man Live. My name is Tim, and tonight we are going to welcome a very special guest by the name of Kenneth Hopkins, or Kenny. He is a researcher of celestial contacts, he is an author, and he is an experiencer of sorts. So we will get into that, and we will explain to you why I say of sorts. But before we do that, let's introduce our panel. We got Nos below me.
Greetings.
And we got Polly Rotterman in the left corner.
Hey guys.
Nos is a very intelligent human being that I rely on for answers when I don't have the right answers. And Polly is an investigative journalist and ET researcher with lots of knowledge. So let's go. Let's start the show with bringing Kenny up large here. So Kenny, can you tell us a little bit about yourself before you got involved with all of this in the phenomenon of the UFO field? Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Okay, my mother had participated in a genetics project with the Army so that I was born Scandinavian from my mother, who was German. And that seemed to be when surveillance started. I was unaware of what my mother had done and found out just before she died. So most of my life, I was unaware that I was a contactee.
All right, so you didn't know you were a contactee
Till about 2000.
About 2000. When did your mom pass?
She passed after that, about 2018, I think it was.
2018. Okay, so not too long ago, 6 years ago. So in regards to your contact experiences, they've been happening since birth, correct?
Pretty much, except for my awareness or my consciousness.
Okay, can you go a little bit into that and explain to us what you mean?
The Pleiadians, I thought, were dreams. The camera showed me that they were teleportations. The Pleiadian interactions were very peaceful, very calming, and I can see why I thought they were a dream most of my life. The Greys used another personality, which we named Kenneth. So that would be the creation of the blackouts at the time of abductions. So when Kenneth took over, he would escort the women to the ships with the help of the Greys. So that was mostly what the blackouts were, or missing time was. And it pretty much occurred on dates. And it pretty much occurred in sexual activity.
What do you mean exactly by it occurring on dates? So when you went on a date, you would be abducted?
When I picked up a girlfriend or went out with her, we would be abducted.
Both of you?
Both of us. They would put the embryo in her, return us both, and all we basically knew was an hour is gone on the clock. It was a clean cut memory. And so when one became 16 hours, and that was with the agent. The military witnessed an abduction in Wenham, Mass, and then used a woman that had been in the MK Ultra projects at age 6, who at that time was in jail. They recruited her because of the cerebral implant she had in her head. The cerebral implant caused convulsions. Those convulsions were why the Greys took interest.
Okay.
Um,
I was going to say something real quick in regards to your dates. Did your date or the lady you went out with, did she have any waking memories of the abduction or the event?
No.
So it
And
was
in a
only
lot of
you.
cases, they didn't even know the time was missing.
So it was only you.
The 16-hour one, I'm pretty sure she knew. The military would interrogate I and the girl they witnessed in an abduction in Wenham. So my impression was she knew. Those are the only two I think had knowledge something was going on.
Okay. Nos?
The others have described it as strange, different, lost their head there.
Right.
But they didn't have any perception on the time that was missing.
Interesting.
And it was usually they were done in a '69 Pontiac Firebird. The majority.
Well, if you're going to travel in style, right? So one of the things that I wanted to ask with relation to your experiences as you've come into more awareness of the consciousness of the things that happened in the past, have you experienced it's very difficult to describe the way that it comes across, but have you experienced a compulsion, drive, motivation towards changing your focus of your education activities, whether it's on an artistic level or a creative level, something to do with creativity?
We had classes at nights with the Pleiadians, and we remember very little of those classes.
Mm-hmm.
When I was going to college, my assignments were disappearing off my computer.
Mm-hmm.
The Pleiadians considered most of college garbage.
Yeah.
They considered a waste of time. They had taught us a very different mathematical system. They taught us a very different physics system. And they had fear of what I was learning was going to interfere with what they taught me.
Yeah. It makes sense. The education system is very much broken.
Yeah, it's based on memorization was what they were furious about.
Yeah.
It's all memorization, not processing, not
applicable knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been that way for 50 years.
So they were harassing me all through the planning. Were harassing me all through college on that.
Right. With the direction that you were led in, is there any particular leaning on technology or anything along those lines that you feel you've been led into in preparation for something?
Phenomena is I don't like. Well, I prefer to have things work by the way science says.
Right.
But it doesn't always work that way. In the beginning, they put me into this massive research mode where I was going through book after book after book. And I saw, after going through articles and some 50 books, and I was doing it in the early 2000s because most of that information has been removed from the internet. The Roswell incident and the CIA's involvement, Aegis Prime and President Truman, all this stuff, historical stuff involving Germany, the ETs and basically disappeared off the computers. My car was being broken into many times, but during a presentation, they took the research I was looking to present, and that made for a frustrating experience. I've been dealing with surveillance my whole life. They'll be in the house checking the computers, checking files, checking, and as I've mentioned repeatedly, most of my writing has been deleted. And so that's why I'm trying to get a laptop so I can finish these next 2 books.
Right.
Okay, Polly.
Kenny, I would like to hear from you a little bit more about your mom connection to this story, your childhood, maybe brothers and sisters, and the moment you got to the army. When did you start realizing that something was different or wrong?
Well, the first thing was being abnormally white. Nobody, the doctors had concern on the color, but I didn't. What was common in my interviews was heavily abusive homes. And in a lot of these cases, my mother was particularly brutal, beating me in the head into unconsciousness. But in a lot of these brutality cases, the parents had no memories of the incidences. In my interviews, this repeatedly came up around my age group. And so these beatings, it almost mimics the MK Ultra projects, which have used abuse, the seeing abuse of others, to bring about a dissociation. And that dissociation has played a major role with the Pleiadians. In one abduction, my first abductions were to ships in space, and I'm not including the Greys. And I always felt uncomfortable suddenly appearing on a ship. And it was too much stimulation, suddenly appearing with a whole bunch of people around you. So I usually found a way to retreat somewhere, hide somewhere. Then the later abductions with the genetics was going to places on Earth, meeting other hybrids. And they would use a gas to bring about sexual behavior. And the gas experience was a horror. I didn't like it. It was a horrible one because it basically turned you into, it stimulated the sexuality without memory. I personally, when they sprayed me, felt like I was raping them. They initiated the spraying. Early years, there was some kind of relationships with them that was happening. So those relationships gas wasn't used. But I always thought those were dreams.
Yeah. Did your mom talk to you about this and what happened to her?
My mother's had a lot of sightings, but she didn't have anything conscious as far as involvement with, no conscious memory of contact, but she reported numerous sightings. We lived way out on the marshes in eastern Mass towards the ocean. And so she'd often see ships. And I felt that people seeing ships was usually a sign, if you've seen many ships, a sign that you are a contactee, but you'd have no memory of it. I've talked to a woman that woke up, saw the ship outside her house, took the pictures of it, and we posted those pictures. But many as I found out recently while working at a factory, for some reason, there was this coworker who I could read her thoughts. And it was very strange. I would later find out the Pleiadians would abduct me and her and have me see her in one of the classes, but she had no memory of abductions. She didn't believe in abductions. She didn't believe in spirits. She didn't believe in ETs. So that was interesting.
Awesome.
So with the direction of the experiences that you've had, do you feel like it's something where like the creative side with the writing that you do you feel like that's the outlet that you are supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah,
the purpose you're supposed to be fulfilling.
Yeah, I'm being pushed on those books, pushed on finishing the next book, pushed on being lucky to get the first one out.
Right. That's kind of where I was going with the earlier questions. It's trying to find out how well your experiences are driving you towards what your purpose is. Because, when it comes to the integration of those with the specific background, not the general experiencer, but the genetic heritage portion, there is drive to fulfill specific purposes in preparation for what comes next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That definitely seems right.
Okay.
And the massive reading of books for several years,
Mm-hmm.
that was driving everybody around me crazy buying books.
Right.
Me too. I bought a lot of books as well, and I think I've read probably 1,000 books, not 50, but 1,000.
Yeah.
And I burned out every source of information I could get just to back up what I saw and what I experienced. So yeah, I wanted to know. In regards to you now, you wrote a book recently called UFO Girl, Military Intelligence. Here, let me bring it up for people to see so they can see the cover of the book. And it's available on Amazon, correct?
Yeah, Amazon and several other bookstores. It's sold out on Amazon, and they did a republishing. It was scheduled to be republished next April, but they did a republishing at the end of last month.
Could you tell us a little bit about your book and the premise for the book?
The premise, I had a lot of rage with the Greys in the beginning for what they did to my girlfriends. In a sense, I saw their reasoning, and they're wanting to continue their breed. They needed the integration of us in their genetics. So I understood what they were doing, except for the women that were brought under hypnosis. And that's why I took the title In Their Darkness, because these women would never remember what happened in those ships.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't In Their Darkness your next book?
Yeah.
Okay,
but there's 6 abductions in the first one, at least.
Okay. Can you tell us about that picture you sent me? Here, let me bring it up. This picture here.
Yeah, this was we used an old security camera because we were blowing the newer ones out. This is done by a Swan camera, and it was the only one we can get that would photograph. The other cameras would blow. Of course, anything with batteries exploded. So in this picture, the top left, we see plasma forming into the individual on the right. And then the reason I picked this picture, because it shows both an arrival and a departure.
So this is teleportation.
Yeah, this is referred to as plasma teleportation. And it's pretty quick and fast. This is about 3 to 4 seconds on these series. This is another plasma form which will become a person. And the government uses the microwave, which you see going across, to monitor the abductions.
Right. And this here is the plasma forming, right?
Yeah, it's a very bright light, but we dimmed the camera down so we can get whatever color we could get. And so this will become a person.
One more time.
When you say a person, it's a military person?
What?
Any person.
Any person.
The Greys said they did something with genetics to make teleportation simpler or something, but they're able to pretty much take anyone. Everybody in this house has been taken, pretty much. So I hear people that don't have the genetics have nausea, vomiting sensations, different reactions.
What about skin rashes?
I haven't any skin rashes, but when I come back, I'm hot as hell. Overheating. One person I described themselves soaking wet. In some, I was wet when I came back, but most of them I feel like I'm just burning up and I can't cool myself down.
Thermal dysregulation.
Yeah.
I've actually heard of people coming back with unknown skin rashes, like a reaction to whatever they were encountering in the environment on board the ships.
Yeah. I haven't. I've come back with surgical marks. There's been a lot of surgery the Greys have done to me. They've done extensive surgery. They got rid of the seizures. And I'm going to write how they were working to get rid of the seizures. I made it. Kenneth would become the dominant personality with the Greys. So under hypnosis, we made a deal with him. And I've been trying to figure out how to write this so that I would go with my consciousness with the Greys instead of his consciousness. And then he would shadow me, was the term we used. He would, if I did something inappropriate, he'd tell me telepathically. So he would be in my head telling me telepathically how to behave in these scenarios. With the Greys, they pretty much had me sitting in a chair and putting electrodes on my head. And I believe that's how they are working the seizures. The seizures would disappear around the time they were doing that. So I put that to their using electrical to diminish the seizures. I believe they were the cause the seizures went away. And the seizures were from the beatings in the head as a child.
Right.
Now, the beatings in the head as a child, they came from the abductions, or did they come from MK Ultra, or did they come from
They
family?
came from my mother.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I don't have any evidence of my mother in the MK Ultra, but and I'm looking to find out more on others that are part of the genetics. It seems like MK Ultra may have been used by the military on them. It was used, so it seems like it was a pattern with the genetic stuff the military was doing. I thought the military, the Greys and the Palladians were all on the same side. I would discover that wasn't true with the torturing.
Did you have any torture done to you when they were experimenting on you on board the craft?
The experimentation was done by the military. there was no experimentation done by the Greys or the Pleiadians. And the military thought they've been looking for something for 40, 50 years. I don't know what they're looking for. They're looking for documents. They're looking for something they think I know. And this has been going on forever. So I don't know what they're looking at, but they're destroying most of my writing, which is why I have to write in a safe and in a disconnected white top.
Okay, could you explain to us how you accrued your injuries to your ribs?
That was 2.5 years ago, but it took 1.5 years for me to. It was this year I found out. I thought the psychologists in the mental health department in the VA played along with not helping me get the memories back. These pictures are from Canada. The technician that was doing the x-rays in Ontario at the base that they did the torturing in, when she saw this picture, she sent her pictures. And then she said that they told her that I was trying to escape. Yeah, this is the witness's statement.
It says, "This is what I found in your abduction x-ray caused by 3 American soldiers trying to stop you from escaping. Because they jumped you, you cracked your rib cage on the edge of a table. The remains inside your body can be from you actually time traveling and passing through dimensions. Thanks to Linda Nicholas."
Yeah. Now, the military psychiatrist told me that was broken from a cough.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no way you could. And those are just some of the broken ribs. They would torture me for 2 nights.
Didn't you just have a recent surgery on your ribs?
3 months ago, a number of the ribs didn't set to the screws and the plates. So 20 hours with 2 surgeons about 3 months ago. So now we got to wait another year for the bones are growing in the metal screwed in titanium plates. So 2 of them are still coming together. They broke the sternum with the initial punches, and then the kicks were done when I fell to the ground. Or to the
And this
floor.
is when you were trying to escape, correct?
I was never trying to escape. When I go on an teleportation, I don't know where the hell I am.
Right.
So the last thing I think of doing is escaping into Canada, or is escaping.
Right.
So what they had done, that they wanted answers to specific questions. So they were beating me for answers to those questions. Prior to that, I thought of them. They had me doing missions for them in the abductions. Eventually, I couldn't do the missions anymore. They involved killing people. In the beginning, I thought there was a purpose with the military. I thought they were aligned with the Greys and the Pleiadians. So I was somewhat compliant. They told me that I'd find out in the end why these killings were being done, or why they had me doing these killings. So I thought, working with the military, I thought I was working with an honorable group. But I haven't found, there's 6 homicides, I think, explained in the book.
Okay. The book itself is a story told by diaries of a young woman's recruitment into military intelligence from a jail cell, involved as a child in the CIA's MK Ultra projects. Her assignment was to become involved with a naive college student from Northeastern University. Together they would experience the unexplainable homicides of friends, a world with no explanations. Blackouts and missing time would plague them. They would experience heaven in consciousness, and held in unconsciousness, Grays would take a special interest in this couple. So this is what this book is about.
It's about this woman, and it's a sad story. They shoot her. They killed their agents, or they made attempts on several of the agents. Her handler, which was her husband, left her for dead, and then she survived that and went into protection. I believe she's dead now. So
How old was she? How old was she?
she was 18.
So this picture on the thumbnail was pretty close.
Yeah, she had blonde hair. In the back of the book, there's an actual picture of her. I wanted to put the pic. She's getting information from this guy who's a photographer, and she does some nude pictures, which I thought were pretty good, but they wouldn't let those be published. So on page 141, there's a missing picture.
Okay.
Christian Faith Publishing says they don't put in nude pictures. So,
Well, that makes sense.
yeah, it was published. Her picture was published in the first book, Earth Transformations.
Right. Okay, Nos?
All right. So with the direction you're going with your writing now, right, thinking in a larger scope of the things, you know, because the field of ufology used to just be, what did this ship look like, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going into the experiences and, you know, what people call abductions versus, you know, experiences and that kind of thing. And we get down to niching down into the types of experiences. And what I'm wondering about right now with the direction that you're being taken in what to cover in the writing that you do, what is the specific component element associated with this overall genre that you're looking to put a pin in for the information that's going to help the public understand the bigger picture?
There's a lot of it took place in 1970s, 76, 77, 78. It shows a lot of the military intelligence involved with the abductions. They witnessed an abduction and went en masse, which was the reason they brought the woman I call UFO girl in.
Right.
And then she accidentally gives information to her friends who are eliminated in a car accident.
Yeah.
So the thing that really gets me, disclosure should involve the darkness of man, because what the Greys, the 16-hour missing time was the Greys evaluating the implant attached to her cerebral, to the cerebral part of her brain. So it was traumatic, the whole 16-hour experience. And it came back to me in flashbacks. The Greys were able to disassemble the agent, remove her skull, remove the left hemisphere of the brain, and show me the electronics in her head. It made it took us, we recovered that memory in 2006, 2007. So that was frightening because I thought they killed her.
Is that the specific reason or information that you really want to focus on to
That's
share
part
with
of
the public?
information is the brutality of man.
Yes.
And then what the Greys did to remove that implant from that young woman. So there's dark ETs, reptilians. I interviewed people of many different groups that are being abducted, and the reptilians are horrible. And it's about fear. In a way, that seemed to be the way the military has responded, threatening me with death, threatening me. Those questions they asked, they could have asked without torture, and I would have answered them. Because I thought the three groups were involved, were working together for the same goal. What I found out, only two of the groups, the Greys and the Palladians, were together, and the military was into its own game.
Yeah.
So the military was, and the military's involvement with the reptilians continues. The Anunnaki, I was surprised to realize, were of higher frequencies. And in the battle on Mars, the Anunnaki were defending the life of the people, were defending the people on the planet of Mars from slavery. The reptilians in the U.S. military were taking over the planet for their usage.
So you're saying there's people on Mars?
Yeah, about 12 years ago, pictures were published from NASA by Eurospace that showed the colonies on the surface of the moon, of Mars. And they had a checkerboard-like appearance. I don't know if you've seen Armstrong's picture of the landing on the moon.
On the moon, yeah.
With the different celestials surrounding them.
Yes.
So the moon is a base. Historically, it's been, by the natives have explained how it has disappeared for periods of time and then returned. The moon appears to be a titanium shell. The stones brought back by NASA were uranium-232, which doesn't naturally occur, only occurs from a reactor. So we're assuming that there's a reactor in the center of the moon.
Knots?
Yeah.
Can you come in on that one?
Yeah, I know what's going on with the moon as far as the composition and stuff, but that's not something that the general audience should be subjected to yet because of the implications of the deterioration problem that's happening. We don't want to scare people before we have the solution to share at the same time. There's essentially the moon is broken. It's not doing its job properly, and we're going to have some cataclysmic effects as the result of it. We do have a solution process that's in place, technologies that we have to implement for that, but that relates to what we're going to be doing very soon. It's that we're going to be addressing something that we've been building on here at UFO Man over the last year. It's that, as we've had guests on, we've continuously went back to the question with each person on, what do you think is going to be necessary to overcome the truth embargo, right? The institutionalized practices keeping the public away from the truth about celestial human relations. And the answer it always comes back to is the government's never going to tell us anything. They're just going to keep doing disinformation because that's all they've ever done. They have never admitted anything. They've only ever been caught. The only way the public is going to come into acceptance of the truth is by a grassroots movement from the people that are involved in it.
Right.
Well, we're at the point where we're ready to do that. We do have possession of the information that is necessary to overthrow the truth embargo. We have the information that's necessary to strip the power away from every government in the world. But that is all very volatile information. It has to be handled very tactfully and tactically in order to allow civilization to move forward with the least amount of destruction. Because it's information the public can't handle with all the social engineering that has been used to keep them from approaching those points. We have the biological information, the technological information, and the historical records, But now it's a matter of getting people together that are willing to take on responsibility for making unilateral decisions on behalf of humanity. And that's the hard part, because everyone wants to know the story. Nobody wants to be Atlas, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to be stepping up for that very soon. We're going to be taking control of the situation, but we need to bring in people that are willing to shoulder that burden. And we're going to be taking them down that road. So, you know, that's part of why, you know, my questions are always leading in a specific direction with the relation of where your work is taking you, because those that have been part of the experience or process have been getting prepared for humanity's transition into the next civilization stage, right? This is, you know, 1,000-piece puzzle. Here's your piece of the puzzle. And once you know where all of those fit together, you can put them together, and the commoners in the population that don't have familiarity with what's going on can then finally see, okay, this is how it all connects together. Take us to the next step. And since the collective governments of the world have decided that they're not going to do anything to help humanity, we're going to do it. So we're going to be the catalysts for saving civilization, coming right out of the UFO Man channel. So that's something that everyone else can be prepared for that announcement coming forward.
I gave her the platform to do this, so I have provided the platform. She is actually a celestial, like I was talking to you before the live stream. What is your definition of a celestial?
Oh, for me?
No, what is Kenny's definition of a celestial?
Yeah.
Good. Which one? Okay. I find the Greys very technologically advanced. I find their objectivity quite unique. I'm probably, in a bizarre way, closer to them than I am the Pleiadians. I don't. The Pleiadians have described the structure of governments that lead away from warring societies, with the non-materialistic pursuit that our society has been set up with capitalism, which only leads to war.
Which is weird, because the Pleiadians or the Nordics originally in World War II aligned themselves with Germany, but then afterwards they offered one of our presidents technology if he were to get rid of nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
And he said no.
Yeah. That was with the Roosevelt 1954. That proposal was made by the Nordics.
Yeah.
And of course, the military was looking at the technologies only.
Wasn't that Dwight D. Eisenhower?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so nobody was looking for enlightenment that the Nordics were offering. Of course, that would lead into the disruption of much religion. They were more, and it's interesting because the Nordics split off from the Pleiadians, I don't know how many decades ago, or even, because when I thought I was Nordic, they said, no, the Nordics split off from us years ago. So in the interviewing of the Nordics, of people that have had involvement with the Nordics, has been interesting. The Nordics appear a little bit more aggressive than the Pleiadians have. One woman described them picking her up in the ship and then threatening they would kill her if she touched them. They seem to have fear of her physical ability. By the end of the ride, they had her driving the ship. So they became very companionable.
That sounds pretty much like the story we had from Australia, from Rowan Ball. she was taken into a ship and they didn't allow her to touch them. And they just gave her to fly the craft.
Yep, they had her fly the craft.
Yeah. I've heard many people describe that experience of flying the craft. I never got the
Yeah.
opportunity.
Rowan Bowe,
So-
in fact, we plan on having her back on because she's had regression therapy since our last interview, and she's come up with more information. So we're
That's
gonna have her on so we can get more precise. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Holly. What were you gonna say?
I was
Oh.
very, she was one of the more interesting ones that had more clarity with the Nordics. It's probably the same woman I had spoken with.
Holly, you were gonna say something. What were you
Well,
gonna say?
yeah, it can be. I think we are talking about the same person. But I wanted to ask you, Kenny, how did the UFO girl recruit you?
She didn't
And
really recruit me.
so how did it happen?
Well, all my Northeastern jobs were a curse. I'll just say that for the cooperative education program. So they assigned me to work with a school, Sylvania, GTE Sylvania, which was handling contracts of teaching Middle Eastern students how to spy on their countries, basically. So after they witnessed the abduction, and then they questioned me and the young woman, the memory we were given was of seeing a movie, and the movie was Blazing Saddles.
Mm-hmm.
So as they started to ask questions about Blazing Saddles, we didn't know what the movie was about, but somehow the screen memory had us seeing a movie. And with the screen memories, when you start to look at them closer, you realize they're not quite right. But the problem is most people don't look at them. Most people move on.
Yeah.
And so they interviewed her about 2 weeks after the abduction.
What did they find out?
Well, first they asked me how the date was, and I said it was good. Went to a movie, and they had already known that we were abducted when they were asking us these questions.
Yeah.
Because they witnessed it. Kenneth locked them in their vehicle as he was going up. The Graves taught certain abilities to their different human contacts. So when they asked us about the abduction, well, they asked me about the movie and so forth. Then I realized I don't know what the movie was about. And then I just kind of dismissed that, not knowing what the movie was about. And then I'm assuming they realized that me thinking I went to a movie during an abduction was interesting. So then I believe they hired UFO girl to contact with Kenneth, who is the one that basically would become my blackout as he became conscious.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like the Greys didn't want direct communication with me, or very limited communication with me. So they used an alternate, and his name was Kenneth. Now, what Kenneth is, we don't know, because Kenneth could talk through mediums, and he could answer my questions.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting into more stuff with hypnosis as to exactly what he is. He seems to know of the tomorrows.
Mm-hmm.
He seems to know of how things are supposed to play out. But as usual, there's so much I'm not to know.
Yeah, that makes sense. It really does.
They constantly tell me it's best that you not know that.
Yeah. Well, when you think about just the culture that we are raised in, right? All of the enculturation and the social engineering and everything else that goes in it. I mean, let's just be honest about it. There are 2,000 different denominations of just Protestant Christianity, which are belief systems for individuals that are wholeheartedly believe that their subjective reality is objective reality that dominates the whole world. And when 99% of the world agrees in a different objective reality, everyone thinks this is normal.
Yeah.
That nobody has a latch on reality and everyone believes that in a different reality and they're okay with that, right? This is the society that we're in.
Comfortable.
And when you are raised in a society like that, the mere concept of touching 1% of objective reality means being subjected to knowledge that the human mind has been trained against being able to handle.
Yeah.
Right. So having that barrier between the consciousness being that is within you that's capable of interacting on that level and the you that has to still engage with and participate in society is necessary for you to not be a gibbering blob on the floor.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And with the way the military-industrial complex is interceding on our daily lives by dumbing us
They've
down.
written our history.
Yeah.
And they're dumbing us down too with ultra-low frequencies that they're using. They're using brainwashing on mainstream media. They're doing a lot of things.
And they're brainwashing military's children with the MK Ultra projects.
Right. What about Project Monarch?
That's I have a picture in the book of the agent that was involved in that, and that covers a number of things, from the implants to the traumatic creation of personalities, and this was done to me at Boston Children's Hospital. With a needle and a child I was to torment. I haven't ventured into the man part of that or what I did to the children. The children were considered disposable. They were kidnapped from New Mexico all the way from South America. And then they'd be used to teach and develop the MK Ultra projects. And I was able to break it with consciousness so they couldn't use me anymore. If you can do these horrible crimes with no memory, that's great. As I did the last two killings, I lost it. I didn't find it justifiable. I had a tantrum during the mission. So there's no more missions after that.
We interviewed somebody by the name of Tony Rodriguez, and he claimed that he had brutal beatings as well, and where he was brought near to death and then revived each time to condition him into being able to work off-world as a slave labor on board anti-gravity interstellar craft. Now, these interstellar craft were man-made with alien tech. But I don't know if you've heard of him, but I recommend that you listen to him, Tony Rodriguez.
Well, that was my next question, actually, Kenny, because Tony, you say Rodriguez, but you know, in Spanish we say Rodriguez, so I don't know how to pronounce it.
Right.
Tony Rodriguez is part of this program called 20 and Back. And so I wanted to ask you if if you know about this program, and if maybe you are related to it somehow, and if you think the 20 and back is possible, which means, let's say, going to Mars and fight there with extraterrestrials and coming back to Earth, not losing your time, like in your timeline. You know, you can go for 20 years and you come back just in your same age. Is that possible? And did that happen to you?
Yes. I've been teleported to the planets of the Pleiadians. The teleportation is instantaneous. I only had a couple conscious experiences of it. But yeah, that's quite possible, because the Pleiadians are in contact with their planets and they're traveling back and forth.
Here's the teleportation photographs that he shared with us. One is an arrival. You can see the energy on the left, and he arrives on the right. And then he's standing there ready to go, and he disappears on the right.
Of course, I have no consciousness of doing that. So when the cameras were set up, they were actually set up to catch the gray that my son saw in the bedroom.
Now, you also said to me earlier that you have cameras focused on the bedroom even when you're not in there. And what do you see?
Well, there's the one camera I had in the room would just go out. It wouldn't show it. It would black out. The other camera would show distortions, and I have pictures of some of those distortions where you can't make. There's colors. There's all different forms, and you can't make any sense out of them.
Have you checked with the camera company to see if it was a defect in the camera itself?
Well, the batteries is one problem, because I would like to work with with an old 35 millimeter video camera. Set it up for motion detection. That involves some electronics, but I believe the 35 millimeter will show clearly what's going on in the room.
You mean digital video will not?
No, they don't. They shut down. They blow out. The electronics in the recorder blows out. I've lost a lot of money. The only one I can find that worked was the old Swan camera sold by Radio Shack. And that was the pictures I showed you. The other camera that worked was the Bushnell hunting cam. But that would blow if teleportation occurred.
Right.
Batteries and the electronics would blow.
So
But
all the energy that was focused in the center of the teleportation would actually blow out the cameras.
yeah, the batteries, and then in our last ones, it blew the electronics out. But the Swan camera, I'm working on developing some more recent pictures from. And there were some changes on what was showing up on the pictures.
Mhm.
Okay. Nos?
Well, like Tim, you showed that one with the freeze frame picture from the video earlier. If you can bring those up, no, go ahead and step to the next one. There. So from the center point, you actually see the impact of the electromagnetic. This is the thing, is that this is very old, and no one would think about going back and looking at what's in, VHS video cassette footage from a long time ago for things. But what you see going on here, this has information in it that relates to relativity technology. And what you have going on is that if you understand the scale of the environment and where the teleportation occurred in relation to the distance of the camera. You see those distortion waves that are on the outside? That's like the distortion waves that you get from like the double slit experiment with the photon or electron projections, that kind of thing. The actual distance that is between each of those waves in the distortion pattern that's there gives you the frequency that was utilized in that process. This is information that, this is information.
Different frequencies we saw in the teleportation.
Yeah, and this is information that if anyone actually understood, that this is basic math right here. This is information that is actually very volatile once you have the information available there, because of the implications of relativity fields and that technology.
What about the green?
Right.
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 Well, when you're dealing with the shifts that are associated with relativity fields, then you either have an increase in frequency or decrease in frequency as the light has to pass across those waves that are around it. Because like while you see the interference pattern that's going off to the sides, you have to remember that this is spherical or egg-like in shape, and those waves are also coming towards the camera. So all of the photons that have to pass through those interference waves that are between where it happens and where the camera is are either riding the front wave that the photons, and this is part of the double slit experiment. The photons, it's not that they exist as particles and waves. They are particles that ride waves. You just don't know that those waves are subspace waves. And if those subspace waves themselves manage to catch the photons, they can cause them to pick up speed, increasing their frequency. The increase in frequency pushes them further from the infrared closer to the ultraviolet. That shift in frequency then gets read by the camera sensors in a particular way. Or if the photons are falling behind the subspace waves, then you have a decrease in frequency and they move further down the color spectrum. And when you get outside of ultraviolet, then you have the harmonic frequencies where the cameras will pick up a color that's not visually there just because it's a harmonic of a color that is within the visible spectrum. This is all part of the technology we're going to be giving to humanity to fix the problems that are going on. But I think it is wonderful and beautiful that you have that image that is from so far ago that captures a piece of this that shows, you know, we've had this information there forever, and people just aren't taking the time to stitch the pieces together.
Yeah, science has done so much to withhold. Anything that doesn't work with science is a phenomena, which becomes science's escape from the truth.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so amazing. That's so amazing, because it's kind of, we are talking about the key of anti-gravity that we just don't know, or we just haven't been informed about how it works. And your picture is an old one. And as Nos said, the fact that you have that picture showing exactly those frequencies and everything is just amazing. I wanted to know if you have like a special gift, kind of telekinesis or telepathy, you know, after all these experiences. Do you have this kind of stuff?
Okay, wait.
Like
Telekinesis.
You're talking about mental. Are you talking about mental telepathy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you? Did they give you this kind of stuff? Do you have this kind of?
A lot of information telepathically. Some I can process, make sense out of. For example, one that keeps coming and haunting me is we're back in time before a catastrophe.
Yeah.
And they keep repeating that, but it's not the Palladian group and it's not the Greys that are telling me that. So time has been put backwards to prevent a horrible event, is what they explained to me. And we're in that past to the event.
I think what she was asking is more along the lines of, do you have the gift of telepathy? Do you have the gift of telekinesis?
Yeah. And I receive a lot from them. The Palladians. I have a friend, Contactee, who probably is also part of the genetics project. And she's better able to interpret some of the telepathy. I don't know. I could take, they give me visuals. They,
Can you remote viewing?
I don't know. I've come across remote viewing, but I don't know quite what it is. I haven't quite looked at it.
I think we lost Polly there, but she'll be back.
That's too bad. Oh,
She'll be back. I'll bring her back on stage.
no.
Here she is.
I'm here, sorry. I was being out.
The concepts confuse me a lot. And then when I go to get further explanation, I can't have it. So,
Yeah.
but the one of us being to the past of a horrible event, and then in time travel to the future, I see the remnants of our technology. I see cars that don't work, lights that don't work, faucets that don't work, holes in roofs of houses. So, and there's no, I came in one of them, they had some kind of device that worked like a phone. That was the only technology I saw. And everybody was without technologies. They're just living in the remnants. And it was, so I was visiting this particular house at that time.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing genetics they wanted it for the future and they wanted it for the past. They took me to around 1960. And then another person described the cars being used to dam up a river, to redirect the water flow to a village. But basically, society exists without the technologies. A woman who had been involved with the Greys on a show, she meant the show that I did in Canada, she mentioned she was very close to the Greys. She says the activity that's going to bring the trauma to Earth is solar, not CO2, even though we're seeing the damage of CO2. In my first book, Kenneth talks. He's interviewed, and he describes the storms getting bigger. He describes the progression of the reshaping of the Earth. That's why we named the book Earth Transformations, or Earth Transformation. The new book is going to be Earth Transformations as a separate title that we won't interrupt with the previous publisher.
Right.
Yeah.
But what he's describing in 2014 is basically happening now.
Right.
Land goes underwater, land goes down, water comes up, storms get bigger and bigger. So he and then he gets into continental changes.
All right.
See the damage of global warming, but according to the Greys, that's not going to be the real problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Where can people find you online, Kenny?
The best way is through email. I couldn't set up an online network
Okay.
because they kept shutting it down, so I couldn't do much with that. So the best way for people to contact me, and I'm looking to speak with many, because my next book is going to be on many interactions of the different celestials, of the higher frequency celestials.
Okay.
So I'm looking to get into interviewing again, talking to people who are having experiences and hearing how and what they're experiencing.
Okay, so
So
we will.
khop53@outlook.com is the best way for them to set up for a discussion or a conversation.
Okay, khop
53.
Outlook 53 at outlook.com.
Yeah.
Polly, can you put that in the chat room, please?
khop53
Yes.
Yeah. At outlook.com.
and it's Outlook.
I'm on LinkedIn and I have a Facebook page.
What's your Facebook page's name?
Oh God. Probably K-Hop. Oh, I use a symbol that we got from a projection in a room that we were working with Seance Communications with a particular group, and they produced holograms. So there's a hologram I kept that looks like an H.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's a capital H that glows. I've seen it.
Yeah.
So that's the name of your Facebook page is H.
Is that H? That's a symbol I use.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, everybody, if you're looking for him on Facebook, you have to look for a capital H that's kind of glowing and it's white, and you will find his Facebook page. Okay, let's take questions from everybody on the panel, and then we'll head out. So last question, Nos.
Last question for me. If there was only one government on Earth that you would entrust to handle the responsibility of commanding celestial technology on behalf of all of humanity, who would it be?
Oh God, it definitely wouldn't be the U.S. government. I would be looking at a government that shows its support of its people.
Mm-hmm.
And Denmark comes to me, Australia comes to me, tribal existence comes to me.
Yeah.
That seems a lot like the Palladian model,
Wonderful.
their economic and political model.
Right. Yeah. Those who have a history of abusing power can be counted on to continue that.
Pretty much. And those with the greed factor.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much what runs this planet right now.
Yeah. For the moment.
Yeah. I'm hoping with supposedly the Pleiadians drove the reptilians out away from Earth. The reptilians have talked of a return. So I'm looking to see a change coming from way above.
Yep. They've implemented solutions. We're headed towards it.
Yeah. We're going through enlightenment.
Yes.
Well,
And
Kenny,
we need to go through it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
what would you say to our community? What do you think is the best way for us to spread consciousness on this issue?
God, okay. There's levels of consciousness and awareness. As I've interacted with people in outer body. Could you try that question again? I'm sorry.
I would like you to give a message to other contactees. what would be that message? What would you say to them in order to keep their consciousness about this phenomenon and make it bigger?
We're all the groups of the higher frequencies are together. So I'm kind of hoping for a unity to develop. Contactees are in every country. There's the coming together is the biggest part, because everything that is in our structured society creates us separate from one another. So the power of coming together, I think, will be what brings us together.
Yeah, unity.
Unity.
Exactly.
Collaboration instead of competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As
Beautiful.
I see no use for competition.
Yeah. Well, that was the number one lesson from that first Independence Day movie. You know, it's humanity stays divided because they're all perceiving different allies, different enemies, but you give all of humanity one enemy, they come together.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And that's where we're going.
Beautiful. Yeah.
The divisions is purposely created.
Yeah.
From creating a terrorist, and then they're created to destroy those of your group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones that need to be looked at are the ones that are creating the dissent. You think the people on the top of the KKK actually believe blacks are inferior to whites?
We can't go there.
Right.
We'll be censored. We'll be taken down.
Okay.
Right.
But anyways, wait until they have to deal with the aliens, which is taking. In my communication with the aliens, we do not project well. The aliens project their auras, their purposes, much stronger than we do. You can feel their goodness. You can feel their kindness. You can feel their acceptance.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And if they can accept a species as broken as humanity is on every level, then maybe we can follow by example.
I don't think all of humanity. I think it's the leadership of humanity.
Yeah.
I have faith in the common man.
Right. Well, I meant humanity as the social construct, not the biological construct.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Okay, well, I'm going to say this. You have lots of information that I have to think about, and I would like to have you back on the channel sometime, Kenny. And
No problem.
we'll get deeper into the subject. I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your time, and for figuring out StreamYard. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank Nos and Polly for being here this evening and for adding a lot of knowledge to the subject matter and for making the evening very inspirational. So thank you, girls.
Always happy to help. And I did want to just, for the audience, before you go, keep your eyes on the channel. Make sure that you have subscribed, because we're going to have some important announcements coming up.
Yeah, we're going to be doing it.
That was being discussed. We're ready to make waves, and it's time.
We're going to be doing a series. We're going to be doing a series of informational releases that people need to watch. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for watching online. Everybody who participated in the chat. And Second Star Survival. Six Star Survival does have a question. Let's answer this first. What is with all this frequency stuff? Humans of today have lost all ways to receive that, except for our ears. Our brain has removed the ability to accept or take the wave patterns. Do you believe that, Nos?
Matt is absolutely right. That's Second Star Survival's name. That's Matt. It's part of why we have been indoctrinated to carry these things around with us at all times. When you understand the control systems that have been put in place, okay, you perceive vision, the experience of light is electromagnetic frequency range, right? Radio communications are electromagnetic frequency range. Television communications, electromagnetic frequency range. Satellites, Bluetooth, every device that you surround yourself with
Computers
is a mute for your senses. It is a mute for your instinct and your ability to perceive the world around you as it is. And that's part of why things are broken in the way that they are, and that the individuals that are supposed to be receiving the instructions necessary for guiding and saving humanity have not been able to do so. It's why all the messages that are coming in are being confused. And we have circumstances where people who are experiencers are getting part of the message they're supposed to. And then the human programming to fill in patterns is filling in the rest. And it's only when you take the collective reporting of those experiences and bring them together and overlay them that you see the actual background pattern of the messages that are being sent. It's like when you get a dozen people into a bank and the bank got robbed, right? Well, if you take one person's description of who the robber was, you're going to have the things that were most important to that person. But when you take all 12 people and you take all their descriptions and you put them together and you look for the repeating pattern components that are there, that's when you see the message that was being sent. We know how to recover the totality of celestial human history that has been stolen. We know how to follow it to the technology and the knowledge that was left behind for us. We're ready for that part. And Matt's exactly right. The constant inundation that we have with electromagnetic signals is there to keep us from coming to this so that the people in power can stay there longer. But their time is done. We're not playing anymore. We're getting ready to redistribute the balance of power. So buckle up.
Amen. Amen.
Ready for the ride.
Okay, I want to thank everybody who watched online, everybody who participated in the chat room. We hope to see you next week. We have another guest by the name of Paul Candy coming on. He's coming on all the way from Australia. He'll be on Saturday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that'll be 6 p.m. Central. And we sincerely hope to see you there. I want to thank you again, Kenny, for coming on this evening. And we will have you back soon, sir.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank your
Thank you
wife
so
for her
much.
service as well, would you please? All righty. Good night, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Take
I
care.
know.
Thank you. Bye, guys.